Your soulmate has just made a decision that absolutely nobody expected. And somehow, that decision directly involves you. Listen closely, because I am speaking straight to your spirit right now, with a message that could completely transform the direction of your future. Your soulmate has recently made a quiet, yet incredibly powerful choice deep within their heart. A choice that no one around them saw coming. They have decided to finally close the door on the pain, confusion, and disappointment of their past, and begin moving toward the deep, loyal, genuine, and lasting love that only you can provide. I know there have been moments when you felt tired, discouraged, and uncertain, wondering whether you would ever experience a truly faithful companion during this lifetime. You do not have to carry that weight of uncertainty anymore, because behind the scenes, this beautiful connection has been developing in ways you cannot fully see yet. Stay with me until the very end, because what I am about to reveal may completely change the way you look at this chapter of your life. For a very long time, this person struggled to understand what they genuinely wanted. They walked through life carrying unanswered questions, questions about love, questions about commitment, questions about trust, and questions about whether a sincere connection could still exist in a world that often appeared filled with disappointment and heartbreak. Many times, they convinced themselves that they were perfectly comfortable being alone. Many times, they told themselves they had stopped caring. Many times, they attempted to direct all of their attention toward other areas of life, toward work, responsibilities, ambitions, goals, personal projects, and countless distractions. Yet no matter how hard they tried to keep themselves occupied, a quiet emptiness continued to exist inside them. There was a space that success could never completely fill. There was a place that achievements could never truly satisfy. There was an emotional need that only authentic, meaningful love could reach. And today, something has shifted. The fog has begun to disappear. The uncertainty has started to weaken. For the first time in what feels like a very long time, they began looking at their future from an entirely different perspective. They were no longer viewing it through fear, old wounds, painful memories, or previous disappointments. Instead, they started seeing it through hope. A new desire awakened somewhere deep inside them. A desire for something real, something stable, something lasting, something worth protecting, investing in, and building together. Slowly, they came to understand that the future they genuinely wanted could never be created by repeating the same patterns that had previously left them feeling empty, disconnected, and emotionally exhausted. So they made a decision, a quiet decision, a deeply personal decision, a decision that the people around them may not understand yet. They decided that they are ready for something deeper. They are ready for something honest. They are ready for something meaningful. And that choice has already begun setting many things into motion. You may not recognize the movement yet. You may not completely understand how everything is unfolding, but movement has already started. Think about every moment when you felt forgotten. Think about the times when you wondered if your prayers were actually being heard. Think about the moments when you sat alone and asked yourself why certain doors never opened for you. Remember those times when you watched other people move forward while you remained in a season of waiting, uncertainty, and silence. Every one of those moments was seen. Not one tear went unnoticed. Not one sincere prayer disappeared into nothingness. Not one disappointment was completely meaningless. Even the delays had a purpose. Even the closed doors had a purpose. Even the relationships that ended carried a lesson and a purpose. There were people you once believed would remain beside you forever. People you trusted deeply. People you imagined would become permanent parts of your future story. Yet somehow, those connections slowly disappeared from your life. At the time, it hurt. At the time, it confused you. At the time, it may have felt deeply unfair. But now you are beginning to understand something that is extremely important. Not every closed door means rejection. Sometimes a closed door is protection. Sometimes what feels like loss is actually guidance. Sometimes what appears to be an ending is really a redirection towards something much greater than you could have imagined. Your soulmate has experienced disappointments of their own. They have carried emotional scars. They have carried regrets. They have experienced loneliness, uncertainty, and moments when they questioned whether they would ever meet the person they were truly meant to share their life with. There were nights when they almost gave up. There were moments when they accepted far less than they deserved. There were times when they convinced themselves that love was no longer important to them. But underneath all of that, the desire never completely disappeared. The desire for loyalty remained. The desire for trust remained. The desire for genuine companionship remained. And now, that desire has become stronger than their fear. It has become stronger than their doubts. It has become stronger than the emotional walls they built around their heart. Your soulmate recently found themselves thinking about the future in a way they had never truly thought about it before. Not simply about next week, not only about next month. They began thinking years ahead. They began imagining an entire lifetime ahead. And when they pictured that future, they realized something that surprised them. They no longer wanted to walk that path alone. That realization caught them off guard, because for such a long time they had convinced themselves that they were independent enough, strong enough, resilient enough, and self-reliant enough to handle everything alone. They believed they did not need anyone beside them. But somewhere deep within, they finally understood something important. Life becomes more meaningful when it is shared with the right person. Happiness feels brighter when there is someone to share it with. Dreams become more fulfilling when there is someone who genuinely understands them. Even ordinary moments can become beautiful when they are experienced with someone whose heart feels like home. And love becomes much more powerful when it is shared with the right person. That realization unlocked something inside them, a space that had remained closed for a very long time. And once that space began opening, they could no longer return completely to the person they used to be. You may have already started noticing signs of change within your own life too. Perhaps you feel more attracted toward new opportunities. Perhaps you have noticed an unexpected sense of calm, replacing the anxiety you once carried. Perhaps you are becoming less emotionally attached to the disappointments, betrayals, and setbacks of your past. Perhaps things that once caused you intense pain no longer have the same power over you. These experiences are not meaningless. They may be signs that your season is changing. You are being encouraged to release what no longer belongs in your future. You are being invited to let go of old fears, old regrets, old disappointments, and old emotional stories, because you cannot fully welcome something new while constantly holding on to what has already passed. Your soulmate is learning this lesson right now, and you are learning it too. Both of you are being prepared in different ways for something that requires emotional maturity, patience, honesty, and trust. And the beautiful part is that neither of you needs to force this connection. You do not need to chase. You do not need to beg. You do not need to prove your worth. You do not need to convince someone to recognize your value. What is genuinely meant for you will recognize you. What is truly aligned with your life will naturally move toward you. What belongs in your future will never require you to completely lose yourself just to keep it. That is why patience matters. Not because nothing is happening, but because so much may be unfolding outside of your current view. Think about a bridge being built from two different sides at exactly the same time. You may only be able to see the construction happening on your side. Your soulmate may only be able to see what is happening on theirs. Neither person can see the entire structure yet. But with every passing day, the distance between the two sides becomes smaller. Piece by piece, step by step, The bridge continues to form. Eventually, the two sides meet in the middle. That is what may be happening right now. There are moments when your soulmate suddenly experiences an unexpected sense of hope. Moments when they become excited about what could be waiting ahead. Moments when they catch themselves smiling without completely understanding the reason. Moments when a memory of you, a thought about love, or an image of the future suddenly enters their mind and changes their emotional state. Those moments matter because they show that something inside them is shifting. Fear is slowly losing its grip. Doubt is slowly losing its grip. The past is slowly losing its grip. And as those old patterns become weaker, there is more room for love, courage, trust, and emotional openness to enter. Your soulmate may also be realizing that the people they once thought they needed were not necessarily the people who were truly meant to stay. Some relationships were lessons. Some connections were temporary. Some people arrived to teach them what they could no longer tolerate. Others showed them what genuine love should never feel like. Through every disappointment, they learned something about themselves. Through every heartbreak, they discovered another layer of their own emotional strength. Through every period of loneliness, they became more aware of what their heart actually needed. And now, they are beginning to understand the difference between simply having someone and having the right person. They no longer want a relationship based only on convenience, attraction, fear of being alone, or temporary excitement. They want something deeper. They want someone they can trust, someone they can communicate with, someone who brings peace rather than confusion. Someone who does not make them question their worth. Someone whose presence feels safe, sincere, and emotionally grounding. And this is where your energy becomes important. You have also been changing. You may not realize how much you have grown because you have been living through the process day by day. But look back at who you were months or years ago compared with who you are becoming now. There are things you no longer tolerate. There are behaviors you no longer excuse. There are situations you no longer chase. There are people you no longer feel desperate to impress. There is a strength inside you that was created through everything you survived. The very experiences you once wished had never happened may have helped prepare you for the person you are becoming. You learned how to stand alone. You learned how to protect your peace. You learned that love should not require constant suffering. You learned that being chosen by someone else is not the same thing as choosing yourself. And because you have learned these lessons, you are becoming more prepared for a healthier kind of connection. Your soulmate is going through a similar awakening in their own way. They are beginning to understand that love is not about perfection. It is not about finding someone who never makes mistakes. It is about finding someone willing to be honest, willing to grow, willing to communicate, willing to remain present, and willing to build something real. They are beginning to understand that the strongest relationships are not created by two people who have never been hurt. They are created by two people who have faced their wounds and decided not to let those wounds control their future. That is why the timing may have felt so slow. There was preparation happening beneath the surface. There were lessons that needed to be learned. There were emotional patterns that needed to end. There were old attachments that needed to be released. And now, the energy is beginning to shift towards something different. Do not become discouraged simply because you cannot see the entire picture yet. You are not required to know every detail of how this will unfold. You are not required to predict every conversation, every meeting, every message, or every moment that will bring two paths closer together. Your responsibility is simply to continue becoming the strongest, healthiest, most authentic version of yourself. Keep protecting your peace. Keep honoring your boundaries. Keep choosing growth over fear. Keep believing that your life can move in a beautiful direction even when you cannot yet see the road ahead. Sometimes, the most important changes happen quietly, before they become visible. Your soulmate's recent decision may be one of those quiet changes. They have made a choice within themselves to stop running from what their heart truly desires. They have decided that their future deserves more than the emotional patterns of their past. They have decided that love is worth taking seriously again. They have decided that vulnerability does not have to mean weakness. They have decided that allowing someone close does not automatically mean losing their independence. And most importantly, they have begun to recognize that the connection they have been searching for may be much closer to them emotionally than they once realized. So if you have been feeling a strange sense of anticipation lately, do not immediately dismiss it. If you have been experiencing unexpected peace, pay attention to it. If old memories have been coming up so you can finally release them, allow them to leave. If you suddenly feel motivated to improve your life, follow that feeling. If you feel called to become more confident, more peaceful, and more authentic, listen to that inner movement. You are not becoming someone else. You are becoming more fully yourself. And perhaps that is the greatest part of this entire message. Your soulmate is not simply changing their mind about love. They are changing themselves so they can approach love differently. They are learning to leave behind the version of themselves that accepted less, feared commitment, avoided vulnerability, or used independence as a shield against emotional intimacy. They are beginning to understand that real love requires courage. It requires openness. It requires two people willing to step beyond what feels familiar and create something neither person has experienced before. So breathe deeply and release the need to control the timing. You have already survived the seasons that once made you question whether your story would ever change. You have already walked through uncertainty. You have already endured moments that tested your faith in love and in yourself. Now allow yourself to believe that another chapter can exist. A chapter filled with clarity instead of confusion, consistency instead of mixed signals, peace instead of anxiety, and genuine companionship instead of loneliness. Something has shifted within your soulmate. Something has shifted within you. And when two people begin changing from the inside, the external story eventually has to reflect those internal changes. You may not know exactly when everything will become visible. You may not know exactly how the next chapter will begin. But you can know this: the old version of your story does not have to define the next one. The disappointments of yesterday do not have authority over the possibilities of tomorrow. The doors that closed behind you do not mean there are no doors ahead. Sometimes they simply mean you are being redirected toward a path you could not recognize at the time. Your soulmate has made a decision, and that decision is not about repeating the past. It is about moving forward with greater awareness, greater honesty, and a deeper understanding of what real love means. So continue preparing your heart without chasing the outcome. Continue living your life without putting everything on pause. Continue becoming the person who feels peaceful even before the relationship arrives. Because the right connection should add to your life, not become the only reason your life feels meaningful. The waiting season is teaching you something. The distance is teaching you something. The silence is teaching you something. And when the time is right, you may look back and realize that everything you once considered a delay was actually part of the preparation. Every closed door, every unanswered question, every painful ending, and every lonely night helped create the wisdom that will allow you to recognize something genuine when it finally stands in front of you. So do not give up now. Do not allow temporary silence to convince you that nothing is happening. Do not allow old disappointments to make you believe that your future must look exactly like your past. Something new can begin when you stop carrying everything that belonged to the old chapter. Your soulmate is learning to do exactly that. And as they release their past, you are being encouraged to release yours too. The bridge is being built from both sides. You may not see the other person working on their side, just as they may not see you working on yours. But every lesson, every transformation, every moment of healing, every decision to choose peace, and every step toward becoming more authentic brings the two sides closer together. And one day, what once seemed impossibly far away may no longer feel distant at all. Until then, trust the process of your own growth. Keep your heart open, but keep your standards strong. Believe in love, but never abandon yourself for it. Stay hopeful, but continue living fully in the present. Your story is still unfolding, and this chapter is not the ending. Your soulmate's unexpected decision may simply be the beginning of a completely different direction, one that neither of you could have fully understood until now. And hope is slowly beginning to take their place. I want you to understand something deeply important. Your soulmate is not looking for perfection. They are looking for authenticity. They are looking for kindness. They are looking for trust. They are looking for someone who brings peace rather than chaos. Someone who brings honesty rather than confusion. Someone who is willing to create something genuine. And every single day, they are becoming more prepared for that kind of connection. The same is true for you. You have grown, you have learned, you have healed in ways you probably realize more than you know. The version of you standing here today is not the same person you were even a year ago. You are stronger, wiser, more conscious, and more prepared than you were before. That preparation matters because the blessings waiting ahead require the growth that came before them. Before we move into the next part, I want you to do something. If you truly believe that brighter days are on their way, leave the number 111 in the comments. Let it become your declaration of hope, your declaration of faith, your declaration that you are ready to release the past and welcome what is waiting ahead. There is something your soulmate experienced recently that they have not told anyone about. Not because they are deliberately hiding it, and not because they are trying to be secretive, but because they do not completely understand the experience themselves. It happened during a completely ordinary moment. Nothing dramatic, nothing unusual, nothing extraordinary. Simply a quiet moment when life seemed to slow down for a little while. And during that moment, a thought entered their mind with incredible clarity. It was a thought they could not simply dismiss, a thought that remained with them long after that day had ended. For reasons they could not quite explain, they suddenly began thinking about the kind of love they genuinely wanted. Not temporary connections, not relationships based on convenience, not situations that looked perfect from the outside while feeling empty on the inside. They wanted something deeper, something lasting, something sincere. That thought stayed with them through the rest of the day, then followed them into the evening, and eventually remained in their mind during the days that came afterward. And the more they thought about it, the stronger that realization became. It was almost as though their heart had finally become exhausted from settling, exhausted from pretending, exhausted from accepting less than what it truly wanted. That realization became a turning point. Because once someone becomes completely honest with themselves about what they truly desire, everything begins to shift. Their perspective changes, their priorities change, even the people they choose to allow into their life begin to change. Your soulmate is currently moving through that kind of transformation. And although they may not have every answer yet, there is one thing they now understand clearly. They no longer want to invest their time in connections that are going nowhere. They no longer want confusion. They no longer want inconsistency. They no longer want relationships built around uncertainty. They want something meaningful, something stable, something genuine, something that feels peaceful, safe, and familiar, something that feels like home. And that desire continues becoming stronger with every passing day. Recently, there have been moments when they have felt strangely guided. Perhaps it was a conversation that seemed to happen at exactly the right time. Perhaps it was a memory that suddenly returned without warning. Perhaps it was an emotion they could not explain, or an unexpected feeling that something important was getting closer. At first, they may have ignored these feelings. They may have brushed them aside and continued with their normal routine. But then it happened again, and again, and eventually they could no longer pretend they were meaningless. Sometimes life speaks quietly before it speaks loudly. Sometimes the signs appear long before the actual event arrives. And sometimes the heart recognizes something long before the conscious mind can understand what it means.